Cześć, nazywam się Rafał Koc z Rafko Dystrybucja i dzisiaj mamy przyjemność gościć kogoś specjalnego, Walt Zerbe z firmy Perlisten Audio. Hi Walt, how are you?
Good, thank you very much.
Wasza firma słynie z precyzyjnych pomiarów i imponujących specyfikacji. Ale co one tak naprawdę mówią o charakterystyce dźwięku, o emocjach, o barwie, przestrzeni?
Yes, so all of Perlisten's products are made through science and engineering. There's been a lot of study around science and engineering of audio, how we hear, how we listen, how audio works in a room. So we have designed all of our speakers exactly using science and technology. So all of our drivers are manufactured by us. All of our components are manufactured and designed by us, including the cabinets, the speaker drivers, everything, so that we can, it's about radiation patterns and it's also about frequency response. So if you get all that stuff right and you get rid of first reflections, which is one of the things that we do with the DPC, which we control the vertical array, that means more of the direct sound gets to the user's ears and more represents what we're listening to. I mean, we could talk for hours on exactly what makes Perlisten, but we are all about extremely low distortion and good coverage and good frequency response, all through design and engineering. There's a lot of snake oil. I don't know if you guys use that term in the audio world. So we show all of our measurements, we show all of our design on our website so people can see exactly what the speakers do. The DPC array was probably the first thing that Perlisten worked on. It took a year and a half to design this waveguide. We have about 14 patents now. That was some of the first patents. What is really unique about that and why it shaped the way it shaped, if you take a look at the waveguide, you'll notice that there's, in the case of the S series, which we're showing here at the show, there's a beryllium tweeter in the middle. And then there are two tech stream tweeters on the outsides. So all three of those tweeters share 1 to 3K frequency response for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's where the driver works the hardest, at 1K to 3K. So it likely would fail when it's pushed hard at 1K. So we don't have one tweeter doing 1K, we have three. So they get to share that job so that each of them work a third less hard. Then we also are beam forming with this lens, so to speak, acoustic lens. So we control the vertical distribution up to about 25 degrees. So we eliminate the reflections from the floor and the ceiling. And then we have about 180 degrees horizontal distribution to cover your ears, which gives you that sense of space, that sense of depth. So the DPC is the central part of that. And then if you look at like what we're showing here, which is the S7T Black Special Edition, those woofers that flank the DPC are now also enabling us to control down to 200 hertz, our vertical and a horizontal distribution, which covers all of the main areas that our ears are most sensitive to in the mid-range, which is why, one of the main reasons why, also with low distortion, why our speakers sound unusual. They just sound natural, they don't sound loud. Distortion's usually your cue that things are getting loud. You'll find you're listening louder than you normally would when you listen to Perlisten because the distortion isn't there. It just sounds right. So all those clues together, cabinet design, everything else, ends up giving you that end result that you've asked about.
Skoro dwie kolumny mogą mieć te same parametry, a jednak budzić zupełnie inne emocje, to gdzie tak naprawdę kryje się różnica?
Yeah, so good question. I would like to clarify specifications. Most speaker companies will give you things like it goes from 20 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz plus or minus 3 dB. It handles 200 watts. It weighs this much. Its dimensions are this much. That is one form of data, but that data doesn't tell you anything about how that speaker actually performs. We use what's called a CTA 2034 or a spinorama, which we show for each one of our products on the website, which is a test. It's done with a machine called a Klippel machine, which we happen to own one. It's quite an elaborate machine. It takes like 13,000 measurements of the speaker in an automated fashion, all the way around, horizontally, vertically, and then it gives you a signature of what that speaker is doing in space. And so if another speaker let's say you're comparing Perlisten to another speaker. If that other speaker had the clippable data, we would see they clearly look different. And then we would be able to say, oh, that's why this one sounds that way, because look at what it's doing from the lows to the highs. So if a speaker has clippable information, and if their clippable information would look identical to ours, there's a good chance that they might sound quite familiar. They might sound close, but distortion is a big part as well, where distortion will make the sound different. Our distortion is very, very low. So data is a funny thing. Most speaker manufacturers don't give the true data to let you know how a speaker sounds. And this is something that's interesting that hi-fi people, I believe, need to learn more about. They need to learn about the spinorama. What is it? Why is it useful? Why should I care? What does it tell me about what the speaker's doing? So Perlisten, we try to do a lot to educate people that were science and engineering. And we design something, we measure it. What did it do? Do we not like it? We change it in the crossover, we change the driver, we measure it again. Do we like it? Don't we like it? And then we know exactly what it's going to do.
Co jest trudniejsze? Osiągnąć perfekcyjny pomiar, czy stworzyć dźwięk, który porusza człowieka?
Creating a sound that truly moves people. You can have a beautiful line, so we'll go back to the spinorama. It can have a beautiful line, or let's say you're equalizing a speaker to fit in a room. It might have a beautiful line, but it might not sound the best. The ear is the best measurement device on the planet. Nothing beats the ear and the brain as long as you know how to listen. Once you put, so let's look at that spinorama data. Once you put a speaker in a room, everything changes, because now the speaker is going to interact with the room. So you know that when we were here setting up, we spent a lot of time figuring out how far from the back wall to put them, how far apart to put them, how to aim them, where to put the subwoofer, so that for this particular space, by the time we sat down, everything sounded right. So at the end of the day, Perlisten is all about music. We're all music lovers. We all love music. We just probably do this selfishly for ourselves. If we're satisfied, we know somebody else will be satisfied. So the specifications are important, but it still has to sound good. So there is a bit of a, I would say, black art as far as just knowing how to listen to make sure, verify that what we've created actually sounds good.
Okay, so when you design the speaker, develop the speaker, the first step is make the measurement.
First step is engineering, and it is predictions. So let's take this S7T for example. We have 7 drivers. What do each one of the drivers need to do? Where do they need to cross over? How about we don't cross this one over, but we have this one roll off instead of putting a crossover in the path? All those decisions are made by the design and engineering team to figure out, okay, now we need a tweeter. The tweeter needs to be able to do this. Great, do finite element analysis, or Cosmol, which is another program we use that does simulations. Simulate it, right. We think this is right, build it, measure it. Did it do what we thought it would do? No, change something. Yes, great. So it all starts with, we know what we want on paper and through engineering. Now we need to make sure we're actually getting what we want. So that's the hand-in-hand give and take that happens.
So the last step is?
These. Last step is we listen to make sure that it sounds right, because it, like you said, the measurement might look good on the data, but our ears are more sensitive than that data is showing. For instance, in the A series, the A3T, I believe, or the A4T, after that was first done, everything looked great. They listened to it. Something just didn't quite sound right. So they changed an inductor on the crossover from a solid core to an air core. And then it sounded right. So that is then the final steps of just tweaking things to make sure, do we really like the way this thing sounds? Is it doing what we wanted it to do? And that's the last step.
Jak wasze podejście do projektowania różni się, gdy myślicie o kinie domowym, a gdy myślicie o odsłuchu muzyki, czyli stereo? Jak to w ogóle da się dziś oddzielić?
I love this question. It's a fallacy to believe that there is a home theater speaker and there is a hi-fi speaker. If a speaker emits sound waves in a room, the speaker doesn't care whether it's a movie or whether it's music. So if you don't design the speaker properly, it will not do both jobs well. So most hi-fi speakers cannot do movies well because they don't do things like good dispersion control, which we do. We do a lot of cinema with all of our SKUs because it's very predictable. The other thing that you need to have for cinema is you need to know what the speaker's doing. So we need to show our data, which we do. Because a designer is going to say, okay, I have X amount of seats, the room is this big, and I want it to get this loud here. So I need a speaker that can do X, Y, and Z. So we show all the data, and then the integrator can look at it and be like, right, I can get the coverage on the seats. It will go up to 120 dB peak, which happens to be the peak of these particular S7 special editions. So I can get loud enough at this seat, and that's how a proper system is designed. So a well-designed speaker can do cinema or it can do hi-fi. Kind of Perlisten's approach was to have hi-fi in cinema. A lot of cinema speakers don't have a hi-fi kind of sound. They're horn speakers, which can be kind of harsh or shouty. They don't sound the best with music, but they might really project with the movie. With Perlisten, we wanted to bring hi-fi to the cinema, so it sounds. You do a Perlisten system in a home cinema, it'll sound way better than the commercial cinema you go and watch a movie in.
Co jest wyjątkowego w subwooferze D8S?
So another thing we didn't talk about with Perlisten, but it's a good place to talk about it now, is we scale SPL. So our smallest bookshelf speaker to our largest freestanding all have the same frequency response. It's just how loud do they go. Same with our subwoofers. From the R8, which is a single 8-inch subwoofer, to the D8, which is 8 8-inch drivers, same frequency response, how loud does it go? So when you're doing bass is the hardest thing to do in a room. And our industry, which is dealing with small rooms generally, is much harder to do than commercial cinemas. A very large room is very easy to do bass in. A very small room is incredibly difficult to do bass in because we have null points where there is no bass, and we have hot spots where there's a lot of bass. So getting bass to be even at the listening area requires multiple subwoofers so that you can put them in the points that we can get rid of the nulls, and we can even out the response at the seats. So there's a lot of reason to use subwoofers for music. One of the main reasons is just plain physics. The main left and right speakers we place to get a good image because we want that holistic image where we feel like we're in the moment. But that's not the best place to produce bass. That's somewhere else. So that's why we use subwoofers with tower speakers so we can get that blend to be just right. And also it increases dynamic range. So if you're listening to, let's say, the 1812 Overture and those cannons go off, if you have dedicated subwoofers, it's gonna be like, wow. I mean, the main speakers can do down to 20 hertz, but they're not in the right position to get you the best bass you can hear. You can still do that, but if you want the best possible recreation of sound, you will integrate subwoofers with a music hi-fi system, and you definitely need it for cinema because there's a lot of low frequency effects in cinema.
Z jakich własnych technologii jesteście najbardziej dumni i dlaczego?
All of them. Because it's all about the package. Like if any one thing goes wrong in our products, it's not going to sound right. So I would have to say, I had to put the DPC on the top of the list. Our ear is most sensitive from the 800 hertz to 5K region. That's where most information in our music is. And that's where we are the most sensitive due to the geometry of our ear. That DPC lives right in that range. And that is really critical. So I think the DPC is one of my favorites. Second favorite would be our dynamic range because of really low mass. Those 3 tweeters in the DPC, all 3 of them weigh less than a gram of mass between all 3 of those tweeters. So think about normal mid-range in the speaker. They use a cone, and that cone is way more mass than a gram. So it can't stop and start as easily as something that's light as a feather. So dynamic range, super important, because dynamic range is what really lets you know when you go to hear live music, it's dynamic. If somebody smacks on a cymbal or smacks on a drum, it's instant. So our dynamic range is pretty instant, and I love that. Third would, these are all really close. Third would be super low distortion. People don't realize how much distortion makes it sound like you're listening to speakers instead of making it sound like you're listening to music. So those would be my top 3.
Wasze kolumny słyną z neutralności i liniowości, które często pokrywają się ze standardami profesjonalnych monitorów studyjnych. Czy myśleliście kiedyś o wejściu na rynek produkcji muzycznej?
As I said before, a speaker, if it's well designed, is a good speaker. It can be used in any application, provided it's the right speaker for the right, you use the right model for the right application. So we'll just keep concentrating on what we have here today. With the S7 special editions, if you put crap into it, you will get crap out of it. If you put a bad recording in there, it'll sound like a bad recording. If you put a great recording in there, it'll sound absolutely awesome, which is what a monitor speaker needs to do. It needs to tell you the truth. It needs to tell you what is happening and can I hear it and can I fix it? So there are a few things you need to do differently, especially if they're near field monitors, which means they're like a meter away from you or a meter and a half away from you. You need to do some different crossover work and some things like that. But it's what Perlisten does. We do engineering. We look at what is the goal and what do we need to design to meet the goal. There is no difference in that application. It's just, do we want to enter that market? By the way, there'd be a great story if we could say mixed on Perlisten, and now you can hear it in your living room in Perlisten. That's a good story.
Yeah.
There is a gentleman in Denmark who owns a studio who is using Perlisten speakers as his main monitors. Okay. And that's been happening for several years. Lars, who is our chief sales officer, lent them to the gentleman to check out, and he won't give them back. So they're the main speakers used for all of the mixing. So there you go.
Here you go. Jak według Was zmienia się rynek hi-fi i high-end? W jakim kierunku idzie?
Yeah, so from Perlisten's perspective, I think the hi-fi market is changing from getting away from traditional hi-fi. For instance, subwoofers were a no-no for a hi-fi person. It had to come from the main 2 speakers. That's it. And there's a lot more recorded music now with even more low frequencies in it. So I think hi-fi people are starting to accept that subwoofers are a good thing to have. And I'm also quite excited about immersive audio. So there's a lot of great music that is being recorded in Dolby Atmos and RO3D. And the studios, for instance, they're doing mic arrays in cathedrals, and you can recreate with things like Dolby Atmos the immersive environment way better than you could with 2 speakers with a multiple speaker setup, including top speakers. So I've heard some of the most amazing music I've ever heard, whether it's a chamber orchestra or it's electronic, in immersive audio, which means all the speakers need to be good. They all should sound the same type of timbre, and it's unbelievable. So I'm excited for that. We're doing a lot more music. A lot of people that put in Perlisten are listening to music in immersive formats. So we had 5.1, we had 7.1, and then we got immersive, which means it brought the heights. It brought the tops in and the heights in. So now you kind of think of it, if you put your speakers properly, you're basically in a bubble. So everything is around you and where you're sitting. So they have the ability to pan, which is called an object. sound between any speaker and position it in space. So you could have something go from here, to the front, to the back. You could hear somebody, shuffle their foot in the audience, and you're like, whoa, that person was over here. It's just like you're sitting watching a live concert. It's awesome. The other thing that's becoming necessary, and like back in the day, equalization was a bad thing because they were all analog circuits and they could introduce a lot of issues. They could correct some problems, but they could also introduce issues like phase and things like this. Today, with digital signal processing and digital things, we can adjust frequencies without all the artifacts. So I'm hopeful that the hi-fi world will be accepting more DSP, more signal processing, because once you put a speaker in a room, it's going to behave strangely, and you need to sometimes, besides positioning, fix those strange behaviors, which we have done in this demo room here today. And you can attest, it sounds good. So, so bringing the hi-fi world up to the more modern age, subwoofers, new formats, DSP.
Często wasze głośniki porównywalne są z innymi high-endowymi firmami typu Wilson Audio, Magico. I wiele osób mówi, że wasze produkty mimo sporo niższej ceny grają równie dobrze, a nawet lepiej. Dlaczego stworzyliście tego typu produkty, które są tak tanie i tak dobre?
Right. Well, we just increased our prices 3 times to you today. Just kidding. Yeah. Again, science and engineering. We put the money where the money should be, which is in the design of the drivers, the crossover, the cabinet, and we believe that our pricing is fair. We want to have someone have an amazing experience. We want people to try to be able to own Perlisten products without it being way up here. So positioning and price-wise, I think it's all positioned and priced just right. We don't need to charge more because that would just be, to us, not fair. We believe we're selling a product at the right price that delivers great performance. There are speakers that are millions of dollars and they sound awful. And if someone wants that, go for it. We're not going to change that person, but that's not who Perlisten is. Probably the best way to answer that question, unless you want to pay more.
Dlaczego zaczynając od high-end poszliście w stronę produktów tańszych? Mam na myśli tutaj serię A.
Yeah, so the A-series product has been around for a while, but it was only sold in one market. And the question was there a need for it to be in other markets and actually be a worldwide product? And the answer to that was a tough one for us to do, but we decided, yes, it needs to be available to everyone. Now, so it's priced below the R series. So S is top, R is in the middle, A is at the bottom. And so you might think, well, that's going to cannibalize or take away R series sales if we have the A series. But that's actually not the case, because what in the A series you don't get is the DPC. And that DPC absolutely makes a difference in the soundstage, in presentation, and also in dynamic range. So the A series sound great. Some people say maybe a little too good, but you still don't. There's still a reason to go up to R or to go up to S. The other great thing to think about with the A series is, let's say someone wanted to take advantage of the immersive audio formats. That requires a lot of speakers. So you can buy a lot more A series speakers than you could R series. So if you wanted to do 9 speakers around the floor and you wanted to do 4 in the ceiling, A series might be a way for someone to go for that instead of buying all those in R or all those in S. We also believe people will, what we've seen so far is once somebody becomes a Perlisten customer, they're a Perlisten customer. So they would aspire to still want to try the R or the S. So we basically just wanted to give a taste of Perlisten to show what we can do. Again, back to your question of why don't you charge more? It's very reasonably priced entry-level product that we believe hits over its weight. It's again, it's a very good speaker, but it's more obtainable. So now we don't have as many SKUs in the line either. So that's on purpose. So we've got the monitor, we have 2 towers, and we have a surround speaker, no subs. That's it. So you can blend our subs with it, but and we won't expand it. We won't make it to 15 SKUs like the other things. It's just someone wants to get Perlisten. They've always loved Perlisten, so we're like, let's do Perlisten as in a more affordable series, but it still does not cannibalize the R series or the S. They are still cream of the crop.
Thank you very much for interview, and have a nice show.
Thank you so much for having me, and we're excited to be here and partners with you.